Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News on the South Florida Conservative News Center. It's Monday, June 16th, and you always wait a couple days, as I say, on these crazy topics because they have, as of last evening, captured the Minnesota lawmaker shooter, as he seems to be called at this point, Vance Boelter. Come on down. Okay, he has been captured. So all of you crossover Democrats can breathe a sigh of relief, at least for now, until the next one shows up. So, what we're going to talk about today isn't about who we want the suspect to be, it's about who he really is. We do some psychological profile things here, and if you need to know which profile style we use, comment and we'll give you all that information. It's not important to the conversation at hand. So we use a variety of different things to get this taken care of. This one was not very hard because we don't have enough, but this is a preliminary, as we would say, a preliminary profile going into the story. And let's see what the media does with the real story, okay? And it's really about who he really is and why the media doesn't seem to care. So we're going to take a close look at the still unfolding case of Vance Boelter, the man accused of assassinating four lawmakers in Minnesota. So you've probably seen the early reports that he was a Trump supporter, a far-right militant. There's a guy who's supposed to be his roommate, who is probably sounds like he's more of his boyfriend. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. Domestic terrorist. They throw domestic terrorist in because he's a Trump supporter, far-right militant. The people burning down the city of Los Angeles are not domestic terrorists. They are civil rights activists. So remember, there is a difference. But the truth, as it usually is far murkier, far more inconvenient, and far more dangerous to the establishment narrative. And we'll talk about that in a minute as soon as the page reloads. You know the story of the page reload. It's all part of a conspiracy to bring us down, the man bringing us down, right? Okay, so let's start with what we don't know. We do not have the full manifesto. In fact, lawmakers at the state say they're going to deny access to the full manifesto because it doesn't say anything. There's nothing to see here. We don't have the entire hit list. Probably going to be the same situational issue there. There's nothing to see here. Why scare people? We don't have a psychological profile. Why would we want to do that? Because that would not probably go with what we're going to say he is. And that hasn't stopped the usual suspects, as we know, the media, social media, partisan influencers, from in general slapping a label on the shooter, which is Mr. Boelter is a MAGA extremist. But the problem is the facts do not line up to that. Okay. Vance Boelter wasn't registered with any political party. He filed as no party preference. There is no social media history of pro-Trump posting. There is no MAGA hat in the closet. The claim that he supported Trump came from a single unnamed friend, the one who was sitting on the steps, crying a little bit, has some issues, not very convincing. I think they should have taken him in and question him a little more, but what am I to say, right? In a conveniently early news drop. That was when he said it. You'll see the video. You know exactly who I'm talking about. And that's all it took for the mainstream media to run with the narrative right-wing terrorism. But let's dig a little deeper on that, as they say. Okay, one of Bolter's victims was Representative Melissa Hortman, H-O-R-T. There's a lot of names that are similar in this. Melissa Hortman, a Democrat who had just crossed party lines to vote with Republicans against health care benefits for illegal immigrants, right? Because that's what you do with illegal immigrants. You give them health care benefits while you're in the second time telling all the old people who went out for this stupid no kings thing, if you saw the amount of elderly there, crying that they're going to lose their Medicare and Medicaid benefits. Well, if they were, it's because they're going to give them to illegals, right? That's not a target a MAGA zealot goes after. They do not shoot the person who crossed party lines to vote against benefits for illegal immigrants. That's someone who's being punished from the left. She is a traitor. And we have done things on the TDS, the psychology of TDS, because TDS as a term, it changes. One week we're saving Palestine, one week we're saving Mexico, one week we're doing this. It's the ever evolving political activism side of what's left of the Democrat Party, mostly the Socialist Party at this point, right? So, like I said, that is something that they would do to punish you for voting from the left, not from the right. Senator John Hoffman, another moderate Democrat, again, not a progressive, but someone who's taken bipartisan positions before. In the new world of the Democrat, you are never allowed to take a bipartisan position because Orange man evil, Republican also bad. It's a dynamic that can only exist in 0 to 1. So Hoffman, of course, also a nice target. So the pattern you see here should smell to you less like partisan warfare and more like ideological revenge. Okay, Boelter didn't just show up with a gun. He comes in a fake police uniform with a badge, with tack gear, a taser, and a vehicle with flashing lights. Okay, this wasn't just your standard Jesus told me to murder these guys, so I did it. It was a psychological operation designed to disorient, to infiltrate, and maybe even to delegitimize trust in actual law enforcement a little further. This plays into the narrative that you hear about the ICE people, masked men grabbing you in the street for no reason and taking you somewhere. Defend yourself, right? And this is what this guy was doing. And then he was living it. He wasn't against it, he was living it. And then there's literature found in his abandoned SUV, pamphlets with the phrase "No Kings." He had flyers for the event. And of course, the other documentation we're never going to see. We don't know if there were weapons in there because that would also have gotten squashed. So let me tell you something. No Kings isn't something you hear in Trump circles. They don't sit around and talk like that, right? It's a rally cry of the anarcho left, of Antifa, of anti-government radicals who burn flags, blow up buildings. They don't wave flags, they burn them, right? So why is the press ignoring the fact that he is shown to be much more in the style of, I'm not going to mention his name, but the plumber Luigi, right? Luigi also has a very similar style here. These guys, even though I have questions about his whole case, these guys and many of the other shooters going way back, including the shooter of the Republican softball team. And we haven't even gotten into the fact that Democrat violence on Republicans with guns is like 42 billion times more than the other way around. Okay. So he checks a lot of boxes that would normally stand for an Antifa style or black bloc style shooter. We know Boelter had a hit list with 70 names on it. That's not a focused political statement. That's a scattershot delusional purge fantasy. The opportunity for one man, which there are still questions if it was one man, for one man to go in there and get 70 people is very, very limited. The only person that we know of who has gotten a gigantic kill count was the Scandinavian shooter, and the plans that he had and the weaponry he used allowed that to happen. That and this are two entirely different things. Okay. But they'll say that because they'll say, well, he could have killed all 70. This guy killed whatever it was, 100 and some people. Yeah, no, couldn't have, because of the methodology, because of the mindset of the shooter that they used in this deal. He didn't just pluck himself out of history. Okay. So once again, we would call it a purge fantasy or delusional purge fantasy. He's playing cosplay. He's playing dress up, just like when you go out and see any number of these rioters. They think they're at Comic-Con, you know, non-essential gear, fantasy weapons, fucking nonsense. but they're living it. They think they're living it. And until somebody cracks their head with a nightstick or runs them down with a horse, they don't understand the difference. And even then, they lay on the pavement and cry like children, waiting for somebody to give them a bottle. In the meantime, other delusional freaks have made it much worse. Okay. We've seen this kind of ideological psychosis before. James Hodgkinson, who shot Representative Stephen Scalise, with Michael Reinl in Portland, with the Kavanaugh assassination attempt. Every time a fractured mind wrapped in left wing moralism pushed over the edge by media hysteria, and yet again, the press points the other way. So here's the question. Why the rush to label him right wing when almost none of the facts support that label? Well, the obvious question and why is because the left has mastered the tactic of narrative inoculation. If they define the story early, they own the frame. And if Boulder turns out to be a left-aligned cosplay revolutionary targeting moderates, that exposes a deeper sickness in the in the movement, but one that we'll have to try to pry out through Freedom of Information Act and all types of other legal shenanigans just to get the true story. This guy is not going to be allowed to talk, even if he wants to, and I'm sure he does. He is not going to be allowed to talk if possible, as far as the left is concerned. That exposes a deeper sickness in the movement. It shows that the left devours its own, and that's not a story the media wants to tell. They don't want to talk about these expendables, these useful idiots. So for now, we have to wait. Once again, don't play into the premature branding on either side. On either side, it doesn't matter if the guy is left or right to you at the moment. People that are going to tell you he's a lefty, there's nothing you can do. I said, don't argue with these people. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your positivity. If you were trying to make a positive uh, impact on a community, don't waste your time arguing with assholes. It's the easiest thing they do. They find an asshole, they stick him in your way, and you're like, I'm going to talk him into the ground. To what? To what end? Are you Charlie Kirk? Are you Ben Shapiro? Are you any number of these guys that just talk shit for a living, right? I mean, I like Charlie. Shapiro's got his own agenda. But you know what I'm saying? Their job when they go to those events is to just talk. If you're running for office, if you're complaining about what your city or your county or your state is doing wrong, you do not have time for these speed bumps to get in your way. Okay? So we have to have some transparency in this, which I don't think we're going to get, but we can demand the transparency. Let's hope somebody like Judicial Watch gets involved. Release the full manifesto. Look how long it took to get the one from the transsexual girl down in Texas, right? And she hated everybody, and she hated white people, and she hated straight people. It totally made sense to people who didn't understand, but by then they had done such a whammy on the weak-willed minds out there, nobody even remember what the hell we were talking about, right? So they have to release the hit list. They have to release the manifesto. They have to stop exploiting a tragedy to score political points before the facts are even out. They will be all over this funeral. They're going to be all over every friend of every one of these politicians. And knowing how subtle some of them are, they're going to say you either say nothing or you say something non-committal. Or, you're wounded now, but we can get you later. Okay? Because if the truth still matters, and so does waiting for it. Okay? So otherwise, until next time, that's what we've got going on for now. And be out there, be safe. Keep your wits about you. Talk to you later on.